All right, I think we're about close enough to start time here. It's pretty much hitting 7 o'clock right now, so I'll do a quick roll call here and call the meeting to order, I guess, first. So at 7 o'clock, and I would start with Rick Murray.
Present and accounted for.
Thank you. Maura.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Present.
Howie.
Here.
Dave Friedman.
Here.
Tucker Patterson.
Yay!
Here. There he is.
Hey,
Hey, Tucker, how you doing? Excellent. Stephen Moan.
Here.
Dave Sinkowski.
Okay, did it?
I thought Dave was going to be joining, but maybe if someone has his number, maybe if they could throw him a text just to see if he's joining in. So
I'll do
Yeah,
that.
I'll send him a text.
Thank
Craig.
you.
Craig.
That was Craig, and Dave Haley or Steve Gard on the alternates. Okay, so I don't think either one of them are here. So, all right. Did everyone get a chance to look at the agenda?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So, someone want to make a motion to accept the agenda?
I move the agenda.
Second.
Thank you, guys. First item on it really is the acceptance of the minutes from October 7th. If you recall, we had last month we had put off until we did some corrections to that. Then we also have the meeting minutes from 11/4. So we got two tonight. Did everyone get a chance to review? We'll start with the 10/7 minutes that were sent out.
Yep.
Yes.
Anyone have any proposed changes?
Move to accept. Second.
Excellent. And from the meeting minutes from 11/4? Everyone get a chance to review?
Very comprehensive, Alicia. Thank you.
Yes.
Alicia, one comment, Mike. It's a minor issue, and he's not here. He will be, I'm sure. Brad White is not a resident of Scituate. He's a Marshfield resident.
Good
I
point.
corrected that since.
Excellent.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right, great. Yeah. Any other comments or corrections that are
Yeah.
needed? What's that, Dave?
There's Brad.
Hey, Brad. No other comments or corrections needed for November 4th?
Move to accept.
Second.
Second.
Excellent. Thank you. Next up is the Harbor Master Report by Stephen. Stephen, do you want to jump in?
Sure. How is everyone this evening?
Awesome.
Well,
Fantastic.
Great. Glad to hear. First, I'm going to start with the update on the new boat. I spoke with Stuart Workman today. He's the builder. And he had a meeting with the gentleman that owns Bomar, who's holding us up on the project with the windows. The windows are to be delivered in 2 weeks. So that is good news. We're getting there. Other than that, the boat's pretty much done. So our plan is probably still to take it back weather dependent on its own bottom. Unless things go really bad, then we would probably ship it down here by truck. But we're still planning on bringing it down on its own bottom. Does anybody have any questions?
yeah, Stephen, when?
It's probably going to be probably the week in between Christmas and New Year's is when I'm guessing. Because once the windows are installed, they have to do their sea trials. And once those are complete, then we take delivery of the boat. Could be just before Christmas or just after. Maybe it'll be a Christmas present for the harbor master office.
Do they drive it down or do you?
No, we'd be taking it down. I believe they'd be going along for part of the ride with us.
Until the seas get a little too rough. Why would we consider postponing delivery until March when it's more pleasurable?
Because I believe John Murphy has on schedule to have the pump installed during the off season at Boatworks.
Well, we could do it
And
early in the game. I mean,
Yeah.
March. I mean,
And-
it doesn't seem
Well,
prudent to take the boat from Maine to Massachusetts in January and February.
Well, we're just going to look at the weather and see what it looks like from there. We're not going to go, if it's, poor weather, we'd have to look out for, 3 days to make sure that we had good weather on both sides of us. If that doesn't work, then again, we'd probably just have it shipped down here on, by truck.
Any idea on the cost of that?
I am not sure right now. I'm waiting to find out from Stuart, what's going on and see if he has any haulers up there. But I'm guessing it's probably about $5,000.
Ooh.
That clearly should be, the boat is late, not because of anything we did wrong. And maybe not anything they did wrong, except their supplier couldn't provide, and that should at least be split, I would think.
Well, that's something we can have a discussion with the builder about.
I mean, it's small potatoes, but, a lot of boat.
Good point, David.
Yeah. How's your piling project going, Stephen?
Well, I have some good news on that front as well.
It's done?
The fencing at Cole Parkway was installed. We blacked out the parking spaces. We put in arrows and the Jersey barriers to reroute the traffic down at Cole Parkway. The crane is going to be arriving on Friday, and there will be 68 piles delivered on 5 trucks, I believe on Monday and Tuesday. So that's moving forward as well.
Great.
Does anybody have any questions?
Do we know when the work's going to start?
We do not.
I know that they're completely, it's up to them exactly when things are going on. It's probably not that big a deal, but will they be giving you updates, regularly on what they're scheduling?
They do. We have been getting updates. That's how I got the update today about the crane coming in, and when the piles would be showing up. But we do get, probably every few weeks we get an update as to what's going on. All the submittals are going through the process of being either approved or corrected or rejected. But, I'd say 98% have been approved. There was one correction on some stonework in the riprap. And I don't know if it was a typo or what it was, but it was corrected. This is all being reviewed by the consultant. This is not being reviewed by, the office. The consultant runs the project. We just, we look over what he has approved or rejected.
So Stephen, Mike, can I ask a question? I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you very much. So Stephen, the crane is either owned or subcontracted by S. White, correct?
The crane is C. White's crane. It's a crawler crane. It'll show up. I believe it's their property. It'll show up on the project. It's coming down from Boston. It should be here at about 6 a.m. on Friday morning, and they will begin to put the crane together.
Okay. So they're gonna put the crane together, but they haven't given you a target date as to when they're gonna start putting driving the piles.
No, they have not. The piles would be driven by barge. They would not be, the crane that's coming is to unload the piles and to get them into the storage area.
Wow. And then will it have to be used to move the cranes the piles from the storage area over to the barge area?
I believe they're going to be picking the piles from the barge.
Oh, so the crane is strictly a short term, it's here and then it goes, it completes the pot.
That is my understanding. Yes.
I would imagine they might use it on that shoreside stuff too, if they need to pull those, that old pier out of there, so.
They actually have a subcontractor that's going to be coming in to do that.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
And he will have his own crane. They were here about 2.5 weeks ago. They were taking measurements to make sure that his crane would reach that area so that they could, put in the stone riprap, remove the old pier, install the new piles, the new wooden piles that are going to hold up the new pier.
Okay, the new platform that's up top.
Yeah, that's turned sideways
Yeah,
and off to the side of the gangway.
okay. Mhm.
And I don't know if the gangway was here during our last meeting, but the gangway has arrived. It's in the parking lot at Cole Parkway. If you haven't seen it, you should take a ride by. It's pretty substantial looking. If you want, if you come by the office, I have a key to the gate. I can walk you in there and have you come take a look at the gangway itself. It's pretty impressive.
That's pretty heavy duty.
Well, the only other question I have in that is, Stephen, if you could just ask White and the gang for a target date. So next meeting, if we're sitting in the same position, we'll understand whether or not he's planning on doing this thing in January, February, March, whenever he's.
I believe they're going to be doing what I was led to believe is they're going to be removing the old pier, repairing the riprap seawall, refacing the seawall, and then they're going to take a weather break, which is going to be January into February, and then they'll start and complete the pilings fairly quickly into March and April.
Okay, thank you.
But again, this is all pretty fluid. If he gets down here and the weather's better, he could start earlier. But he does have, he's very confident that he will be completed on time.
Correct, and he has to finish by May 14th or thereabouts.
He has to be completely gone May 14th.
Okay, and there's penalties if not.
So, yes, there are. There's daily penalties.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions about the pile project?
Just a quick one, Steve. I know we're planning on using all the old blocks that were on the chains at Jericho Beach, right? At which beach?
Peggotty.
Peggotty Beach, right? Who's trucking them over there?
That's part of the contract.
Okay, great.
So if that's the last question on the piling project update, I'll move on to the parking lot lights at the Jericho ramp.
Yep.
I've been going back and forth with National Grid. I put in a purchase order to rent the lights themselves from National Grid. I'm going to start out with two 250-watt high-pressure sodium lamps, flood lamps that'll be in that parking lot, which would be more light than was existing from the decorative lamps that were in that parking lot. Then out of the budget, I would be paying the monthly bill, which I think David Doffey says he has one on his building. It costs about $30 a month, David, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So that was if they
So-
were motion censored, right? Not dawn to, not a dusk to
No.
dawn.
These would be on dawn to dusk. These would not be on motion sensors.
It'll be a lot more than Dave's then.
No,
And I thought last time we were researching to see if the town was actually paying for it already or not.
The town pays for all the lights. And now that I've brought this to the attention of the town administrator and to Nancy Holt, they're going to be reissuing the bills for the lights at the Jericho boat ramp, I believe, to us.
Well, let me
Okay,
ask you a
yeah.
question. Why is the Waterways Fund paying for public lighting of a parking lot? We don't pay for Cole Parkway. Isn't that not a town responsibility?
So more,
This was the quickest way for us to get the lights installed, and I thought that's what we were looking to do. And I thought we could discuss with the town administrator and Nancy Holt who should be paying for this. Similar to when we discovered that we were paying the insurance on the police boat. We put that back into the police budget.
Just as an example, I know in Marshfield, the waterways fees, I was with Mike DeMeo today, they're paying for all the lighting of their parking lot where there is a ramp. So they assume all the maintenance for that. And the other thing is, as far as the charge of $30 for the light, that's $30 per light, right?
Correct.
I just make sure people understand that.
Yes, it is.
I'm here in an association in my neighborhood. We have those lights, and they're $30 per light.
and is that on all night, Dave?
The ones we have are on dawn to dusk. Yes.
On the dusk, yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, I know.
I believe ours are going to be less expensive
Plus the
because I
dawn.
believe the town pays has a better rate on electricity
Mhm.
for their street lights.
I think Mr. Murray has a question.
Yeah, Steve, as you know, I tend to support the work you're doing because it's very high quality and you make a lot of good decisions, obviously. I'm not in favor here of the waterways paying for the lighting in that parking lot. We need to be very, very careful of what waterways money is being used for, and that's essentially a shore-based activity. I do get the point that Sinkowski made about, by analogy with Marshfield, that the parking lot is there and the ramp is there and that's public access for the water. But I worry that it's a slippery slope we're getting involved in. And I get back to long ago, we had a discussion about who pays for maintaining the railing at Cole Parkway, for example. And the town tried to get that railing to be paid for out of the Waterways Commission money. And we insisted back then that it come from the town money. And I think we just have to be very firm on drawing a line on where the waterways money begins and ends. This is a little grayer, I will admit, than the railing example I just gave for the reasons that Sinkowski said. But I'm just very worried about this slippery slope in this case on that.
Okay. Would the waterways like me to hold off on having the lights installed until we figure out who's paying or if the town will pay for this?
It's also a public access that's a ramp that's maintained by the state. And I know that's a ping pong ball going back and forth, but.
Yeah, it is. But the lights that are there now, that are in the
Yeah.
parking, those decorative lights
Yep.
are fishing and boating access has no vehicle to pay electric light bills.
Sure.
So the lights that are in the parking lot today, the decorative ones that were removed, the meter, I took a picture of the meter, I sent it to National Grid,
Yep.
and that bill is paid at 600 Chief Justice Cushing Highway at Scituate Town Hall, and that's who's been paying it.
Gotcha.
I sent it over to Nancy, and that's when the question came up, why, who should be paying it?
Yeah. And I admit,
Bring it
maybe
up
I'm
to
being,
Maura. That's a Maura question.
yeah, I uptight. I admit, I might be too uptight about this right now, but my spidey sense is tingling a little bit about this one. That's all.
No.
Steve, you also said that you're renting them. I think, are they basically, streetlights facing the parking lot, like the same thing?
No, these are floodlights. They're square boxes, and they're 250 watt high pressure sodiums.
You talked about renting them.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't
It
buy
costs,
No.
again, there's, if we rent them from National Grid, if there's a problem with them, they repair the problems. If a photo cell goes out, they fix the photo cell. If ballast lets go, they come down and take care of that. If something happens to these, they get taken care of.
I think there was a major change when they went to LED lights around town. The town owns the lights and the town maintains the lights, the street lights.
On the LEDs, yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So why don't we get a couple of LEDs put in and just have it added to the bill for the town?
All right. Again, it goes back to, I don't believe the town wants to pay the bill, and I was trying to get this done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, okay.
I applaud that too.
If you don't want me to, I have no issue. I will find out who the contractor is to see if we can find someone to put up LED light fixtures.
So
Just let me know what you want me to, just direct me. That's all I'm asking.
Mike, I think Steve, you're doing the right thing. The reason why I met with Mike DeMeo today, because I was trying to investigate how it is they have a state ramp like we do, yet they're charging parking fees and creating revenue. And one of the things he mentioned was that, yeah, it's a state ramp, but I do all the maintenance, and I could wait for the state to come in to paint the lines or fix the lights, but I'd be waiting 3 or 4 months, and I can do it myself in a couple of days and get it done the way I want it done. So I think in the longer view, and this is to the things that Dave Doffey had brought up earlier, is we could look for ways of bringing some revenue in, charge for parking for trailers, and then assume this maintenance of a light or painting the parking lot and get it done right and quickly. And I think leaving it undone for months, as it has been, is a safety issue. And I'd rather be in control of our own destiny. To me, it's not black or white. It's gray. But that's the way I lean on this one.
Howie, go ahead.
Dave, I think it's a little bit different than the Marshfield situation. Marshfield doesn't have a Waterways Enterprise Fund. They get funded by the town budget. And Mike DeMeo's, that's where he gets his money from. So it's quite a bit different than what we do, where we self-fund our enterprise fund for direct waterfront operations. I think this is a bigger issue, and I think it's an issue that the town has to address. Here we have a public parking lot that used to be lit for reasons of safety. They had to come down because they were rusting. Now we have a public parking lot in the dark. And I think it's a bigger town issue that we provide safety to that particular area. I don't think this falls on Waterways at all. I think it falls on the town, and I guess I'd have to defer to Maura. How do you feel about it, Maura? Because I think this is where we need some guidance.
Well, in my opinion, it's a public lot. Let's just go back. I think it's two-pronged approach, right? Stephen's trying to get a situation resolved immediately, and then for long term, we need to take a look and make sure I mean, we have a streetlight fund, so it should just be built into that and be a part of that. And I agree with you, it is a safety issue. So to me, I'm hearing two things. One, Stephen's trying to take care of an immediate issue, which having the money come out of waterways may have been the quickest route. Can always, reimburse it from the town side if that's necessary. But I can take it up with Jim and Nancy and find out where we want to put this. Stephen, what is it annually to light it? Do you know?
It's $255 a year for the fixture, per fixture. And
And how many
What?
fixtures are there? I mean, this just sounds like a stupid argument.
I'm looking at 2 fixtures. So it's about $510 for the 2 fixtures. And then you have an electric light bill, which is based on how many hours a day they're lit. It's longer in the wintertime, obviously, and shorter in the summertime. So they can't give you, an amount. I believe for the street lights, we're paying about 8 cents per kilowatt hour.
All right, I'll take it up with Jim and Nancy.
When I initially spoke to Jim about this, he felt that these lights should be paid for by the state since it's the state's parking lot, but the state does not have a vehicle to do this. When I sent the information over to Nancy, she questioned, why Waterways is not paying this, and I think it made it sound like she was going to correct that we would be, paying this.
Okay.
All right.
Yep. I think the last meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Officer McCauley had brought up that those lights and the other lights in town are kind of on one master bill and they kind of get billed back to the town. And I would just propose that if we could do that, that it just, at least the electrical for it gets billed back to the town instead of the waterways. Because as Mr. Murray had stated, it's kind of a slippery slope on that. So, Mr. Doffney.
Just a question to Stephen. David Doffney, 356 Clap Road. I'm just curious, this is a temporary, if I'm not mistaken, a temporary fix, and the ultimate fix is going to be public access coming back and replacing those lights in the lot, correct?
I've been speaking to public access basically since I got here about the different boat ramps around town.
Yeah.
And I met with their engineer, which is Foth Engineering, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They had some questions about the parking area itself. I went over and met with them. They said they were sent down by Fishing and Boating Access to do engineered plans to do a rehab of the parking lot itself. At that point, I spoke to them I showed them the lights that have been removed, and I'm an electrician by trade, and I also sold lighting or electrical supplies. I had suggested to them to, instead of replacing the poles with metal poles like they did in the past, Shakespeare makes a fiberglass pole, a decorative pole. I don't know if anybody's been to Mashpee Commons, but on one side of Route 151, those are cast iron poles, and on the Stop and Shop side, they're identical and they're fiberglass, but they look older, they're decorative, and they actually throw a fair amount of light. So that's what I had suggested. I had also suggested to the engineers to put in a line for a pump out station so that I could get a grant from the Clean Vessel Act and have a pump out station put in down at the boat ramp. So if people are launching or retrieving, they can pull off to the side, and it only takes about 3 or 4 minutes to pump out your boat, and it's better than putting it in the water. So these are just some of the ideas that I had. Again, I'm just, I don't think they're going to be doing any work to this parking lot probably for another couple of years because the state moves pretty slowly. But that's where I'm at with it.
Okay, so the big picture is lighting, and it's temporary. This is a temporary
Yeah.
solution, And a more,
That's all.
so at the, you know, if it was for a couple of years, it's $1,000 or whatever it is, $1,200 for 2 years worth of lighting. You know,
Correct.
it's important, especially when you're trying to work down there or you're trying to get in and out at those hours. So it's not a. I guess my point is I want to make sure it's not a forever fix. Number one. Number two is I presented documentation that I came up with over a year ago that the state does allow for us to charge for parking at that ramp, even though it is a state-funded ramp. You can charge for parking, and you can use that money directly for maintenance and repair and upkeep of that facility.
That is correct, David. And I also spoke to the engineers about having a credit card kiosk at the boat ramp itself, where each of the parking spaces, similar to like at the MBTA stations,
Yep.
they're numbered or lettered. You go in, you put your credit card in, you get the little tag, you put the tag on your dashboard, and that's how you pay for your parking. So we don't have to have someone over there collecting money. But, you know, the police could go through and ticket cars that are not paying.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so just kind of circling back around on this to get back to the light issue itself. So I didn't realize it was a kind of a short-term fix. I thought this is what was going to be for kind of going forward, but you're going to look into possibly how to see if the town was willing to pay for the electricity for the lighting, and then I guess from that.
Well, I didn't know that, you know, Waterways was dead set against that. I thought the short term, just to make it safe down there, this was probably the quickest way to get it done. Where in the past, if I had any financial questions, Brian and I spoke, and Brian would make some suggestions along with myself to the town administrator or Nancy, and we've actually changed a number of things that we were being charged for that we're no longer being charged for.
Right, understood. I just feel like, you know, to the point of Rick and a bunch of the other people, we should be asking about whether Waterway should be paying for the electric on that, you know, or whether the town should just pick it up as a parking lot. So,
Brian, do you think that's a question we can ask Nancy or
So Maura said she'd look into
I will.
it.
more?
yeah, more to-
Yeah, I thought Maura was
Okay.
on.
Yeah, I will, Stephen.
Thank you.
Okay,
Maura.
great. Thank you.
All right, Stephen, anything else on your report? I think those were the 3 items that we had, or does anyone else have any questions?
Brad's
Mr.
got
Chair,
his
you
hand
do
up.
have a comment from the public if you want to take it.
Sure, we'll take it.
Brad had his hand up.
Hi, good evening, everybody. A couple of questions about that particular area. Maura, did you get any feedback on first, that area is mothballed for the winter, the dock's out, but it's still being used. Maura, any feedback on the Bouse House bathroom down there that we've been talking about for a few months now?
I thought you were talking about the one over on Conservation Park.
No, that was the one we were talking about that was kind of beyond sanitation. This is the missing Bouse House, the missing bathroom that's down at the Jericho ramp that has not been there for months and months, and people were.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know you needed me to look into that.
Yeah, people are relieving themselves on the side of the ramp and in the crushed stone area. It's pretty bad. So that was removed. Don't know why, don't know how, but that was on the wish list several months ago.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll see what we can find out. Sure.
Thank you. And then my other question, Mr. Chairman, is to Harbor Master Moan. Stephen, how did you make out with the extended warranty request if you had to take delivery of your new boat in March and your billing and paying and all that kind of good stuff? We talked about maybe asking them to push your warranty out 3 or 4 months. How did Stuart respond to that?
I haven't spoken to Stuart about that. That is something that I plan to do once the boat's completed.
Okay, that probably makes sense, but I think it's important if you can get 6 free months of, or 6 additional months of warranty, that would be helpful to you in the future. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank Brad. Yeah. All right, if there's no other questions, then I'd like to move on to kind of old business. And then the first item on that was really the dredge, comprehensive dredge project bid status.
So that is also going along very well. The project was put out to several engineering firms that do that type of work. Yesterday, any of questions, they had to be submitted to me by close of business yesterday. We got 11 questions from some of the different consultants. We answered the questions and we returned the questions back to the consultants. And I believe it's next Thursday. We have a bid opening, and it's a two-prong approach where we open the bids and we read, the qualifications and what they've done in the past, and kind of go over and grade them depending on how we feel they would perform for the town of Scituate. After we grade them, then at that point, we would open the cost. So they would be selected based on their technical approach and how we believe their ability to do this type of work and what type of work,
No, that's fine.
how many other towns have done this with. So that's going along very well.
Okay, so next Thursday, you guys have the bid opening. So, by
Yeah.
next week, we'll have an idea of likely who
Yes,
will win that. Yeah.
that's
What time
correct.
Stephen, what time is the bid opening and where is that going to occur?
It's going to be at the town administrator's office, and I believe he's just going to open the bids, and he's going to give them to us. He is not opening the cost, and myself and our team are going to review the project qualifications, and we're going to grade them, and we do that individually. Then we get together and we decide, A, B, C, D, etc. Which firm we'd like to have, and then at that point we'd open the cost.
So
It
what
has to
time
be a
is that
public
going?
cost opening, right? I mean, the cost has to be open publicly, I would think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what time is that?
I mean, but they would be selected based on their qualifications.
Right.
It's not like buying a car where, a Ford F-250 with certain items in it is a Ford F-250 with certain items in it. You want the best person for the job doing the project. You don't want someone that's really not qualified to do it, winning the bid and then not being able to perform. Because even if we, are able to get rid of them, we'd have to start this project all over again. So that's why the engineering firms are selected this way.
So what time is this going to occur?
I believe it's around 11, Howie. It's actually, I sent you the bid package.
Yes.
It's right in there.
Okay.
Okay. Any other further questions on the dredge project? I don't see any hands up, so. Any other comments? No? All right, next up, we have mooring rental suggested rules and regulation changes. So we had a work group on this. This was Rick, Brian, and Brian were the three that were on it. And I think Mr. Brian Cronin is going to take lead on this.
Ryan's been doing virtually all the work, so that's great with me. Go ahead, Brian.
So the feedback from last meeting, from the feedback from last meeting, we added the language, in event of a hurricane watch or warning, the harbor master has the right to cancel reservations and require the boat owner to remove their boat from the mooring. The town of Scituate is not responsible for any damage to vessels renting town moorings. And then the other suggestion, or we modified the language of no vessel shall occupy a transient mooring for more than 7 days in a 30-day period. And that was changed from 7 days in a calendar month. So other than that, the language was the same. And I don't know, Mike, if you have it and if you want to share it, share your
Yeah, I was
screen.
just going to ask you that. You want me to share that, Brian?
That would be great.
All right. Let me know if you can see that or not.
There it is.
You got it?
Yeah.
I'll try to make it as big as I can. I know it's usually a challenge for us to kind of see stuff like this, but I'll zoom in a little bit. So Brian, I'll let you take it from here, but essentially what's in yellow is what has been proposed as the changes, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, the yellow is the total changes. It's really just the last two paragraphs were what's changed from last month.
Okay, so in section G, you added other than the harbor master renting to transient boaters, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And then section H is new altogether, and if you wouldn't mind just kind of reading through that.
Okay, so section H, transient moorings. The harbor master may maintain transient moorings for rent in Scituate waters. Nightly rental fees for the town of Scituate transient moorings will be established by the harbor master. The fee would be per boat and does not allow for multiple boats to be rafted unless specifically approved by the Scituate harbor master. And then we get into the weather clause to allow the harbor master to shut down mooring rentals, and then the clause of no more than 7 days in the 30-day period to make sure that people aren't getting around the mooring waiting list by just paying for a mooring. So.
Okay. Any comments from the Waterways Commission on the proposed changes? Now, the reason we're doing this is because we, as you know, we did update the bylaws and sent that to the selectmen. We were on the Board of Selectmen meetings agenda on the 17th, and Maura helped us kind of get the changes through, at least till we get to a proposed kind of draft was approved at the November 17th meeting. So this kind of goes hand in hand with the bylaws in order to support kind of the regulations under the bylaws. So that's why this, some of this was to be added in. So any questions from the committee? I don't see any hands up or anyone asking. Yeah.
So putting on my
Brian has one, Mike.
putting
Laura?
on my usual anal hat. No vessel shall occupy a transient mooring for more than 7 days in a 30-day period. At first I was worried that would allow someone to mooring hop because it says a transient mooring. And I guess someone could say, well, I'm moving from one transient mooring to a different transient mooring. But I'm not worried about that because I think that coverage there, no vessel shall occupy a transient mooring, actually is plural, because one transient mooring and another transient mooring are both transient moorings. So I think that
Right.
degree of specificity is fine.
You're like the grammar police.
No, it's just, well, more, I mean, people will find loopholes about boats. You know?
Maura, did you have a question as well?
I did. I was just curious if this is similar language to other harbors, specifically where it says the town of Scituate is not responsible for any damage. I mean, I would think, do we need to change that to liable, or also, it obviously would have to be reviewed by town council, I would believe, especially when putting something like that in here. So just curious where the language came from.
I would defer to you, Brian, on that piece of it. I know some of it we looked at other towns as we put some of this together, correct?
Yeah, I did not. That's not from another town. That's just something I put in.
Not that I disagree with it, the spirit of it, just curious about the
Yeah, I'd say
wording.
have your lawyer review it. Don't rely on mine.
All right, so what's the protocol on this then? So do we want to move forward with a motion tonight to do this, or do we want to move to kind of take it further to have someone review it from the town? I'm not quite sure how we've done that in the past.
So I'd move that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they consider, or that they, I'd move to the Board of Selectmen that they modify the regulations, or allow us to modify the regulations as indicated. And then if they choose to go to the lawyer for it and so on, they can do so as part of their due process. But I think this is fine for us.
Okay. And anyone to second the motion?
I'll second that motion.
And who was that, Dave Sinkowski?
That was Brian Kelly.
Oh, it was Brian, sorry about that, yeah. All right, great. Do you want to take a roll call vote here? And start with Rick Murray,
Aye.
Brian Kelly,
Aye.
Howie,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Tucker,
Probably muted.
I can't see if he's still on. I know he was on, but I can't see all the participants right now because I'm screen sharing.
You can probably hear now.
Aye.
There he is.
Thank you, Tucker. Stephen,
Abstain,
Dave
as
Sinkowski,
I always do.
right.
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Steve Guard. Well, Steve's can't.
No, he doesn't vote.
Yeah. All right, so those are not non-votes on the last one, and Mike Gibbons, aye, so. All right, so we got that taken care of. I will make sure I get something drawn up so we can send it to the BOS, and I'll take Maura's input on that when we're ready for it, so thank you.
Mike, one comment. We were going to look into how, and I've never used DACWA, how when somebody is reserving this mooring, if they do it through DACWA, how they know the regulations and what they'll be paying, and what, whether they'll have showers or all that stuff was to be determined. But I think I just want to make the point that somehow it should, whatever rules we come up with and whatever's included in this mooring fee gets put on DACWA.
Yeah, Dave, really good point. So what we decided to do here was get the bylaws kind of in line, and then the mooring rules and regulations in line, so that we had the ability to do this. Then I think, like you said, the next step is, good reminder, we need to have policy in place, and then how do we do that on DACWA? And there's a lot more operation that Stephen and his team are going to have to put in place in order to make this work so that it is available on DACWA, right?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Mr. Gibbons.
Any other comments on that?
Mr. Mr. Gibbons, I hate to interrupt, but if you are taking public comment, once again, you do have a hand raised if you are
Oh.
taking public comment.
Thank you, Seth, because I seem to overlook kind of that, but yes, we would like to take public comment.
No
I can
name.
handle that for you. There you go.
Someone have a public comment?
Has to get unmuted.
I've asked the individual to unmute. They are not. He or she.
Seth,
may
how
be-
can I see which person has the hand up? Because I just don't see it in the view that I'm in.
If you look in your gallery view, Mike, there's a left hand on there's a hand on the top left corner of the box. It's blue.
Yep.
And you can ask them to unmute. Well, it moved down to well, my screen moved. They took the hand down.
Oh, they took the hand down. Okay. Yeah.
Strong work.
All right. So it sounds like we do not have a question from the gallery or from the public. So, if there's no other comment, I would just like to thank the group that helped kind of put that together, and appreciate the help on getting that put together and the wordsmithing on that. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that group was Brian Cronin 100%. So thank you, Brian.
Yes.
Absolutely right. 110% Brian Cronin.
You got that right.
Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is small vessel decal study. We were asked last month to keep this on because Dave was unable to make it last month and we had some updates. So with that, I think this was the 3 Daves that were involved in this.
I would let Dave Sinkowski take the lead since he's done all the work.
Am I able to share a screen?
Yeah, you can share it. If it's the document you sent me earlier, I can share it.
Host has disabled screen sharing.
You want me to share what you sent?
No, I did an update since then. So if you allow me, I'll use this one.
Hang on one second.
David, you should be able to share now. I apologize. You were not a co-host. You should be good now.
All right, good.
Do you see the document?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So just the 3Ds involved in this. The towns on the left. We simply went down the South Shore and.
David, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you try to share your screen one more time for us?
Okay.
And the green button down at the bottom. Just make sure we can see it.
Do you not see it?
We do not
Nope.
see it yet.
No.
No, I don't see it.
Try one more time. It says screen sharing has failed to start. The windows you are selecting is invalid. So,
How many
sorry.
changes were there, Dave? Maybe Mike, we can just talk about the differences. Let Mike share his.
Yeah, that's fine. Why not, Mike? Sorry.
All right, give me 1 second here.
Oh, so now Dave's sharing.
Yes, he is.
So Dave, you're sharing now. I see your Zoom thing.
I'm trying, fellas and ladies and gentlemen. Is it work now?
Yeah, yeah.
It does. Yep.
Oh, wonders never cease. So the towns on the left, the ones highlighted in yellow have active sticker programs. They do not charge for these. These are just reflective stickers you put on the kayak and some on the paddles, which give a name and a phone number. And when these these personal watercraft go missing, they know how to track down and, not send out boats and helicopters looking for someone who's not missing. So to me, it seems kind of a good idea. Maybe we might want to look into adopting this. The second column is the usage fee. I only found one town that has a usage fee, that's Toro. So whether they enforce it or not, I really don't know, but they require a waterways fee for your kayak of $50. No one else charges. So in my view, this is not something we'd want to go down that path, but that is the information. Third column is storage rack fees. You can see that there are 5 towns that have active programs. Some of them have waiting lists. Myself and Craig Rosenquist also took some pictures of some of these racks. I think it's, again, something we might want to look into because it appears to bring value to the town. I think that I know it was spoken earlier that there was some state monies available for waterway access. Possibly we could apply. I know that Marshfield got $5,000 from the state to pay for their racks. And I'll touch on that for a second because they have two different rack areas for kayaks. And one of them is for special needs. It has a wheelchair access to allow an individual to get from a wheelchair into a kayak. And that's, I think, a new dynamic. It would be nice to bring this to the public. So, and then as you see in the final column, I just added some comments as far as the fees involved, whether or not they charge for parking while you're there. And I think it's from here, it's kind of self-explanatory. I don't know if there's any questions.
Anyone from the committee have any questions? I guess the question I have is, do you guys as a group, are you proposing having one, the usage fee, and then two, to go after the grant money to build rack storage and to charge for it?
I don't think the group has had a chance to really review everything yet. I'm putting this in as an update.
Yep.
And then that's.
Dave,
Yeah.
this is Stephen Moan.
Yep.
How are you?
Hey, Stephen.
Just so everyone's aware, right now we also provide stickers at no charge for kayaks, canoes, rowboats, for paddlecraft, pretty much to anybody that wants it. We get boxes of them from the Coast Guard, and we encourage people, if they come in and ask a question, we actually hand them out. If they're asking a paddleboard question or a kayak or canoe question, we say, take a Sharpie, write your name and telephone number on this, so if it's found, you can recover your property.
Right.
So we do that now.
Yeah, I would say that these are the ones I just stumbled on by asking some questions, or you Google it, it pops up. I think it's probably a good thing, and you're doing it already. That's great. We maybe should find some way to I don't know if the right word is advertise it, or just to make the public aware.
Right, promote it and give it out in more places.
Right.
Well, I think we talked about that early on in this discussion, and I think Howie and I discussed Mass Marine Trades actually puts out this information. Is it throughout the year, Howie, or once a year at the beginning of the season? They talked about the sticker program.
I think they do it a couple of times, Steve. It's my recollection. They're pretty hip.
Yeah, I believe I know they do it at least once a year, maybe 2 to 3 times a year. They encourage people to put these stickers on their boats so that people, we put it to the people where they'll be able to recover their property. And secondly, if we tell them, if something happens, we know, either to look for you or not look for you, because if we get you on the phone, obviously we don't have to look for you, but if we don't get you on the phone, we're going to continue to look for you.
Yeah, I think one of the things I noticed, the towns that have rack storage, they insist that these, stickers be on there so that there's traceability. I don't know how you push it on the rest of the public, but again, I think this group was trying just to gather the information to see what the other towns are doing, to see if there's something we can learn from it. I think what my view from what I know so far is that on column 2, I don't see a reason for a usage fee. I don't think it's enforceable. But I do think, part of our mandate is to help with the access to the waterways. And I think these racks are a relatively inexpensive way of achieving this, and the state is giving out money for it. So I think we should be in line.
And Howie brought up also, the cost of lumber and all that, or whatever we make them with. The VOTAC might be available to help build if we can design a simple rack system.
Yeah,
So-
I think this is a great idea. One of our key things is to enhance public access at as low cost as possible. And that's why we have our Cole Parkway Marina fees less than the private fees at the private marinas, right? So Dave Sinkowski and the other Daves, I think this is a really good idea. And then it gets to be a issue of implementation. How big a rack do we want to have? Where do we put it? Is it, and that's where the harbor master comes in as well. Do we want to have it first come, first served? And then what do we have? If we have first come, first served, and it can hold 10, let's say we have one rack that holds 10 kayaks. What do we have when we have 30 kayaks all over the place sprinkled around it? So do we have to have a sticker that's either free or $10 sticker that's specific for rack? And then if you're on the rack and you don't have it, so it's a little bit of an enforcement issue or not. But I would argue that we make it as simple as possible, as inexpensive as possible, and see if it creates a total mess at first, and then we could ramp up, no pun intended, we could ramp up enforcement or something. But I would start with putting a rack out with a sign on it and say keep all kayaks on the rack. If kayaks are on the ground for more than 2 days, we get them, something like that, and see if that just creates havoc or not. But overall, I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I kind of like the idea of giving more people public access to get to the waterfront and a way to store these things. If you guys, the 3 Daves, still want to look at this a little bit further to see if maybe, I think I had sent everyone out the information regarding the DMF grants that were available. If you guys want to look at that and try to take it a step further, is that what you would like to do?
I would like to, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
And I want to make
One last word on the racks. So I noticed some of them are actually quite tall, and I'm sure there's going to be some people who aren't going to want to look at a rack. When I say tall, 5-6 feet tall. But there are others that I noticed that were at ground level. So there are solutions where you could put these and not have it be an eyesore.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
I think it's a good idea. I can think of a couple spots that may be not that bad for blocking views that they might be able to store some, It's good. I think I had a couple questions that were out there. Look like Maura, did you have a question?
I just had a comment. I think it's a great idea, but I think if we do it, let's do it right. Not just a small step at a time, but really think about the placement of the racks, because people are going to want them over, by Conservation Park. They're going to want them by the harbor. So, maybe even over by Minot, who knows, right? There are a lot of different places to enter around town. So I think we really should take a really deep look at all those different entry points and identify, a suitable rack for those areas. And maybe it's a phased approach, but I think we definitely should do more than one to start with, because I mean, I think we all saw how many small craft and kayaks were all over our waters this past summer. It's only gonna, I think, grow.
Yeah, I would
But I
agree.
love it. It's great. Thank you for looking into it.
Yeah,
That's
thank
an
you, guys.
interesting idea. I hadn't considered other locations. I was just thinking so, but I think Maura, that's a really good idea. But let's just keep the use of it as simple as possible and not over engineer the implementation of it. But I think the more the merrier, to a certain degree. I might be a little careful about putting them at Minot or not. I don't know, because that's open water as opposed to restricted waters.
I think you have to check with Cohasset on that first.
That'll go over well.
Yeah. No, but overall, yeah, that sounds good.
I do have just a couple comments, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
This is still in the committee, and we're vetting through, and we appreciate all of the comments that come in. But there's a number of things. When you increase a specific activity and allow it to happen without any form of paid use, and we have to be careful that you don't displace those people that are already paying to access the water. So there's a lot of things that can happen, and those are the things that we're trying to work our way through, which is coverage and safety and pressure on Stephen's office and other enforcement, safety, tracking, everything that goes on. It's $64,000 an hour for the Coast Guard to search for a missing kayaker, and they may not be missing. So that's most importantly, is trying to get this all kind of. It's been a free for all for such a long time, and this year was we saw a big increase in the use, but also the safety reasons. You get into the Gulf River off of Gannett Road, we've had people get sucked through the culvert, and there's other things. So you have to just keep, it's a broad spectrum that we're looking at, and we're just trying to keep a broad mind on what's going on. And should we encourage or increase free usage without any kind of, like I say, compensation back to those facilities that are covering it for safety. And so we'll work on that stuff. We'd like to present it, and then you guys can figure out from there. But you had like 80 and 90. I forget what the number was on Museum Beach. I mean, if you think you're going to build a rack and only get 10 people to get there, I think you're looking at hundreds of kayaks that could be stored or used in a rack. Not
Yeah.
So
then it becomes
that's after tonight's discussion. We'll work on that in committee and be able to bring that up to you and vet it out.
All right. Well, I will keep you guys on the agenda kind of moving forward, so we can kind of keep updates on this. If you guys need anything from me on those DMF applications for that, just let me know and I'll get them back out to you. So any other comments regarding this from the board or from the audience, public? All right, I don't see any hands up, so we will move along. Thank you guys for your work on that.
You got it.
Just a quick update. So I already mentioned this earlier, but we did have the waterways bylaws proposed changes brought up at the Board of Selectmen meetings, and it was approved to take the draft or the next step, which is make the final draft of that, so that it would be on the agenda for the next town meeting, which I believe is in April. So that's just an update. Item E under old business was, I left this on here from last month just because there was a lot of interest in the DMF shellfish closures in the North and South Rivers. So I left it in here just to say that Shellfish Advisory had a meeting on November 18th. One of the items on the agenda was kind of those closures down there. Mr. Daphne and some of the other people from our committee were on that as well. And I just wanted to encourage anyone else that didn't know that if they're looking for additional information on that, to follow what the Shellfish Advisory group is doing as they work to kind of get that resolved down the river. So I didn't think it made a lot of sense for us to keep that, to have us continue discussions on it when they're already working on it. So If there's no comments on that, I would like to move to new business. I'm clear to go. I don't see any hands up. New business, Mr. Kelly is up first with the financial update. Brian, as you know, last month had said he was going to get us an update kind of on the financials. I believe he's met with Nancy and some updates for us. So.
Sure, Mike. So we don't have to go through the pain of me trying to share my screen and not having permissions and then having a Microsoft crash. Could you share yours?
I sure can. Yeah.
I emailed out right before the meeting to the members of the committee. I'll gladly talk about this. There we go. Fantastic. So this is a very simple Excel, which has been all the information that's on here. These figures have been pulled from official down financials with Nancy's assistance. The only difference is, again, this is unofficial, as I say in the email. On the cells up, and you can see in H2 and 3, you're able to adjust or modify those numbers, increase revenues and expenses. Accordingly, it'll ripple out post FY23. So what's actual on here is FY17 through 20. Those are actuals. FY21 is our current year, and that's still in a budget, quote unquote, mode. And for 22, the first round of budgets have gone in. So this is where we have our issue. So again, the town operates on a fiscal year of July 1st to June 30th. So we conclude 21 on June 30th and move into 22 on July 1st. Based upon revenue expectations, which are conservative, the town will always be conservative on its revenue expectations. And operating expenses, while we still see a surplus, understand that that needs to then be adjusted by debt service. So if I could just focus briefly on the changeover from 21 to 22 on debt service. What that is, that's a combination of two events. One, the South River dredging project is number one. And number two is the new harbor master vessel. That information was provided last month to the members of the committee. I gave out pretty detailed debt service explanation, a PDF file, which shows it in great detail. But the net here is there were two events that is causing these numbers to be slightly higher than our expectations from about 45 days ago. The town went to the market for the credit facility back in, I believe it was end of October. And for reasons that they have that aren't really that important, a change from a 10-year schedule on the harbor master boat to a 9-year schedule. So therefore, we had one extra year now spread out amongst the other 10 years. In addition, the way the town does their debt servicing, they front-end load the principal slightly. So for the first 5 years of the note, we're paying a higher principal than we are in the last 4 years. And the final thing is in year one, which is fiscal year 22, we also have a bundled short-term interest. So for the builder, as we progress through this contract, we've been paying them in tranches of, I'll call it approximately 25% as they hit certain milestones and completion marks. There's nothing free, so therefore that money was borrowed and applied to the first year. So the net here is we see a bit of a spike on our debt service running from 21 to 22. The result of that, with an expectation of increased expenses, operating expenses, and pretty much flatline revenue, is that we're looking at a shortfall, Stephen's budget shortfall of about 79, call it $80,000. Now, again, these numbers are conservative on the revenue side because that's what they do. On I'm not going to get into my philosophy on it. I mean, we have large waiting lists. But again, it's better off to be conservative and not aggressive on our revenue. Our revenue was, if anybody takes a look at it, they're probably wondering how the hell our revenue could drop from 1.3 and 20 down. If you notice, I've got little notations underneath it. We received $145,000 in a FEMA reimbursement and approximately 20-something thousand in interest. That was something that had been built up over the year, and that disappears. Our normal, on the revenue side, we normally get about $3,000 a year on interest. That 1 year, it was in the mid-20s. So call it approximately $200,000 uptick. That was a one-time event. We should never expect it. Our revenue should be somewhere north of 1.2, slightly above. The town's got us at call it 1.6. So I think there's $40,000 in additional revenue sitting out there. On operational expenses, the primary culprits over the years, you'll see there's significant increase over the years. And what's occurred are two big events, and then it's death by paper cuts on a number of other expense items. The two big ones are, as was discussed at a couple of the waterways meetings, the Commonwealth historically had a pool for insurance for every town and city to participate in, and it included a plethora of items. One of those was insuring docks, marinas. The Commonwealth moved away from that. So we had to go to the private market. Nancy and her crew in town hall went out and got bids from a number of private insurers. The net is we were hit with approximately, I believe the number is $65,000 or $70,000 increase over our existing insurance policies, the Commonwealth one. So that was a big whack. In addition, during due diligence, it was discovered that we didn't have ice damage, which really wasn't relevant 5 years ago. But now that we're putting in, obviously, the circulators, we're leaving docks in, we're getting pilings, this became an issue. And that was, I believe, somewhere in the vicinity of 7,500 a Marina, so about 15,000. So all in, we're looking at about $80,000 alone on insurance increases. The second issue was health insurance. The town had a big increase over on health insurance side as well, premiums, policies, et cetera. While nowhere near that magnitude of what I just described, it was significant. So that's the reason that we'll see operating expenses, and we can do a deeper dive on this. What I really just want to focus on is in FY22, and again, this doesn't include any retained earnings. Retained earnings can't be used for operating expenses. It doesn't include any capital projects. Over the next 5 years, we have approximately $2.2 million in capital projects. Some we certainly hope to get grants, some we may delay, and obviously other projects that are unforeseen may get pulled in. So, but we do have about 2.2 million. So while we see a drop in debt service, significant, over $200,000 from just 24 to 25, we've got to get to 25, obviously, to be able to realize those savings and the revenue. The problem we do have is that one of the big projects in that 2.2 million is the dock upgrade program that we're looking at. And that is somewhere in the vicinity of 700,000 to $1 million, depending upon what it is and when it is. And historically, we would go try to get a grant from Seaport. However, the Commonwealth is tightening its belt. So the question is whether or not those grants will be available, and when we're going to run, and when we will run out of life, usage for those docks. In other words, for electrical codes, if the water line is getting too close, I think the official is about 9 inches, but Stephen, you can correct me on that. But the net is at some point, we're going to have to move with a dock program. It may be a patchwork quote to try to get us to 25. But those are other discussions that we can have in the future. The short term is we have to look at the $80,000 shortfall that the town, that Jim and Nancy are projecting in Steve's budget. So we have an $80,000 shortfall. We don't have any expense levers that we really can pump the brakes on. So therefore, we have to look at it on the revenue side. Now, if the Daves can come up with 80,000 sticker program, God bless them.
About 100.
That'd be a nice trick.
They don't, then obviously one of the discussions are, at some point, do we take a look at slip and mooring fees? And so I've opened now Pandora's box on that one, so to speak. But I wanted to give everybody a quick view of this. I know this is like trying to drink from a fire hose, but I'm available for any questions, not only now, but I'll meet anybody for either coffees or virtual events and go into this in greater detail. So, any questions?
All right, I'll take the
job,
bait.
Brian.
I'll take the bait. So I'm just going to put this out there. Number one, this is a great analysis, this forward looking. It's really essential to help planning. And so thank you so much for doing it. I see this as a 2-year problem. And I'm very hesitant to solve a 2-year problem with what would definitely be a permanent change in rates. Because once you add a rate, once you increase a rate, it's really hard to decrease that rate, and so on and so forth. I would like to see more or learn more, not tonight, but in general, about what temporary expenses we can delay or phase in at a slower rate than we currently are to bridge us through those 2 years. I guess, and I think you said retained earnings cannot be used, or if there's other mechanisms, but I see this as a 2-year problem, and I don't want to solve it with a permanent increase in rates and so on.
So a couple of points, Rick.
Yeah.
Yes, you're correct. I did say that can't be used on operational expense.
Yeah.
There is a very, very unique set of circumstances that it indeed can be. So I'll throw it out. If back in May, we couldn't open the Marinas because of COVID, then we would appeal to the Commonwealth and they would allow us to use retained earnings for some of the operational events.
Yeah, but this isn't at that scale. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. So otherwise, no, it cannot be used for that.
Yep.
And I've invited Nancy, who's accepted, to come on for our January meeting. So
Right.
we can certainly give some far better detail into our expenses, into what can and can't be. From conversations I've had with folks in town hall, and Stephen has certainly heard the same thing. If we don't figure out the 79,000, then they will. In other words, for Steve's budget, they will take out $80,000 that's in there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now that may be, to be honest with you, when I've looked at the expenses, we certainly can't not have insurance. We certainly can't not pay health insurance, stock insurance, etc. We just put that out to bid, so the likelihood of getting any kind of cost savings in that in the short term aren't very likely. So it would be maybe not hiring as many assistant harbor masters.
Right.
It would be a huge number. Our seasonal salaries are approximately $200,000 to the best of my recollection. Amongst, Stephen, correct me, I can't remember, is it 14 assistant harbor masters?
Well, there's, I have quite a few more harbor masters or assistant harbor masters, but a lot of them work 1 or 2 days a week.
Yeah, I know. How many total do you have?
We have, I think there's 21 or 22, but again, there's, at night I have 3 guys on, and during the day we have usually around 4, including myself and Mike Bierce, and then the pump out operators. But most of the pump out operators, a lot of their salaries get reimbursed by the state.
Okay,
through
so
the Clean Vessel Act.
without us doing a deep dive in this, why don't you and I convene between now and the next meeting and take a look and said, all right, if we had to pump the brakes on certain expenses, how do we get to that 79,821? And again,
Yep.
this is a projected number on their side. The reality is, our 21 numbers, I feel, are very conservative, and that will pick up some money in 21. And I think our 22 numbers are extremely conservative
Yep.
on the revenue side. But we can
Yep.
certainly take a look at what expenses can be looked at. And then when Nancy comes on, we will have certainly circled up with Nancy for our next meeting, and she'll be prepared to talk in greater detail about this. Okay.
I had a quick question, Brian.
Okay.
Fiscal year 2018, I understand in 19 and 20, we had some additional monies that came in that bumped the revenue up a little bit. But fiscal year 2018, we were at 1,205,000 in revenue and income. I'm trying to figure out how it could possibly go down year over year, where we've increased the number of moorings or moorings that were let out, where we're collecting additional fees there. And from a marina standpoint, you know, we haven't decreased the number of slips or anything. So when I look at the revenue triggers, I'm just trying to figure out how we could possibly go down at all year over year, other than those abnormalities in 19 and 20 that were additional monies that came in, right?
Correct. Yeah. So 19 was a small grant we received and some interest income, again, just like in 20. And 20 was FEMA, right? So I agree with you. I believe that our numbers, our revenue numbers should be north of 1.2.
Should be north of 1.2, right?
Yeah. Like FY18.
Yeah. So, and I understand, you know, from a conservative standpoint, you bump that down just to make sure you get some cushion. That way, at the end of the year, if you go over in your expenses, you have a little bit, you know, you don't take money out of retained earnings, or you don't run a deficit. But I would also say that, to Rick's point, when you get to 25, right? If you look at the surplus or deficit, you know, it starts going way up because the debt service goes way down in 25, right? So it's interesting how that happens when you look over at kind of columns J, K, and L. It starts to go up. But at the same time, I would warn people when they're looking at that, that I do believe that once we do some of these other projects, i.e. marina replacement stuff, that although that looks great now, none of that is, if I'm not mistaken, Brian, none of that is calculated into the numbers that are further out.
That is correct. That's just existing service as of November of 2020.
Yeah.
Future debt services, which could be any project that has a useful life of 10 years or greater, like docks. We could utilize a debt service vehicle for that. That is not in these numbers.
Okay.
Let's just arbitrarily say we decided to spend $1 million, shoot me, for new docks. And went to the Commonwealth and Seaport twice. And they said, no go. And now we're at a critical stage and have to assume the cost ourselves. $1 million over 10 years would probably be about $140,000 annually that would be added to our debt service.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back of the napkin math, just about.
Right. Yeah. So all I'm trying to point out to the greater group here is that although that looks awesome in 25 and 26, you know, once we know some of these other projects go through that are there, it will have a negative impact on what's there for surplus going to retained earnings. So,
yeah.
But Mike, we should know some of that now because we have a 5-year capital plan.
Mm-hmm.
So we should have some idea what our presumptive expenses would be during that period. That's why we do that plan.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
I don't know how that figures. I have 2 questions. I think being conservative on the revenue doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me because we know how many moorings, we know how many slips we have.
Yeah.
You know, we should be able to predict that with some accuracy. I don't know why we're being conservative there, for one. And the other question I had was regarding using the use of bubblers and not having to pull the docks out of the water. Have we experienced the savings of not having to pull the slips out of the water?
That's a great point, Howie. I think originally we were projecting to save $50,000 on a straight cost side, offset by a large electrical increase. The electrical increase turned out to be not quite as large. Now, granted, we were only running one marina,
Yeah,
the bubbler, so to speak.
yeah.
Still, I believe there should have been somewhere in the vicinity of $25,000 to $30,000 of net saving to us, quote unquote. Stephen, do you agree on that?
Yeah, I do. We have had some failures to docks. Howie's dock let go, it broke in two. We had a dock that broke over Cole Parkway year before that. And then we had one break last summer over on B dock. The docks are about, you know, 8,000, and then after you get the electrician in, you know, you're up about $10,000 by the time you replace those floats. But there should be some savings.
Well, because we also had the increase in the ice insurance, which we never had to pay for before. So that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was roughly 15,000, Brian?
Yeah, that's what I was told.
So there's still some savings, I think, Howie, if that's what you're getting to, but it's not everything that we were originally thinking it was, right?
No, but we're looking at $80,000, and Brian mentioned earlier regarding the revenue, there's probably at least 40,000 there, and you know, you're only out another 40. So we may be able to bring this into tow just by honing in on some of these expenses. Not even so much the expenses because it's flatline. I'm having trouble with the revenue number being low.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't see any way that number can go down, especially with the number of boats that has increased in this past year, one way or another, getting stored and at marinas, and everything's full. So
yeah, we've got waiting lists, so we ought to be able to predict that fairly accurately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Yeah, either way you look at it, it's at least 1.2, right?
Yeah, minimum.
Reasonably. So awesome update, Brian. I don't know if anyone else has any questions from the committee or from the public. I don't
Thank
see
you very
any
much,
hands up.
Brian. That was clear.
Yeah, that was really, and I appreciate all the help and the work that you did to put this together. I know it wasn't easy. You had a computer malfunction, quote unquote, and everything else, but that's a great overview. And having Nancy come to the next meeting, I think you mentioned in January, would be a really good way to kind of round out exactly what is there and what's needed. And then in the meantime, if we can kind of look at what you talked about on the where we might be able to cut back on some of the expenses, and to Howie's point about the revenue possibly being realistically a little bit higher than that, then the gap gets smaller, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
The gap gets smaller. So for purposes of this, you know, we had put rate discussion down on the agenda tonight, just kind of as a topic in case we get into that stuff. What I would rather see is everyone kind of go back, take a look at these numbers. Let's hear what Nancy has to say in January, because we still have time on this because it's the 22 fiscal year. Would it make sense then to kind of listen to what she has to say and then try to make any discussions around rate changes or proposed rate changes?
Yeah, so if I could just interject.
Sure.
And I've talked well beyond my my limit, so I'm just going to channel my my inner mayor of South Scituate. So,
Change.
Good luck.
so we have plenty of time on this in the sense that I would think, if we decided that the only lever available to us was a increase on slip fees / mooring fees. We would obviously open this up for public discussion to get their involvement. The first dollar from any consumer of moorings or slips would not be due until October of 21. Now, we obviously want to give people plenty of planning time, but for people, if we were to have a rate increase, it would not go into effect this year. It would be the following year. And the correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but I believe the date is, and there's a few of you who obviously are members of the Marinas. I believe the date is October that you have to have your renewal fee in, correct?
I think your deposit has to be in by October 15th of each year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
being able to open this up for public discussion sometime in the spring, should we have to go that way, gives us plenty of time. I'm hoping we don't, but if we had to, we would. And then Mike had put together over a year ago an estimate on if we did increase. I'll gladly send that out to anybody who doesn't have it, but a $10 slip increase would result in, I believe, approximately $58,000. And this is an estimate. A $1 mooring increase would result about 15,000. The total number was about 73,000. So not advocating we move that way. I'm just saying those are the numbers that are out there for people to digest. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Brian. It's great, tremendous update. Thank you. And we look forward to the additional discussion in January. So anyone else that gets comments or questions on that portion before we move on? All right, guess what, guys? Last item on the agenda. We're making breakneck speed tonight. So the last item is a Marina contract amendment language update. It's a mouthful. If you recall, and I stuck this under new business only because we haven't talked about it since February this past year. And for those of you that remember, in the February meeting, we approved as a committee a couple changes to the Marina contract language. One was around slip holder ownership and documentation needed each year. And the second part of it was around notification to the harbor master in the event that when you launch your boat or haul your boat, and if you're going to be out of your slip for more than 24 hours. It was a couple of changes that were made here that we had approved were really to make this also synchronous with the mooring regulations, because we wanted them to match up to what we had in the mooring regulations as far as ownership goes. So if you'd like, I'd bring that up on the screen to show you what the changes are.
Mike, I just want the committee to know that I took the changes that were approved back in February, word for word, and put them where I believed they belonged in the Marina contract. And I just wanted to make sure that that is how you want it worded and where you want it in the contract.
Would you guys like me to screen share to show you that?
Why not?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
All right. I'm getting better at this. So here's the, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Pull it up if you can.
Yeah, let me make it this one page at a time here so that
View. I think it's the view.
I'm in view. No, that didn't help. No. Oh, now I've done
Mike, go to the lower right-hand corner,
it. Yeah.
green, and you can increase it. You can drag that and increase the size of it.
Either 0 to 100. Is that
Oh,
what
down
you ordered?
there?
Yeah.
I can certainly do that. I wanted to get it so that it was one page at a time so that I wasn't looking at both, so that you'd have more available there. So. Let me try one thing here. Give me 1 second. Well, we are not having good luck with this.
So much for the speed of light.
I jinxed myself by saying that I was getting the hang of this thing, right?
You're trying to make me feel better.
All right, so we're gonna have to deal with it like this here, and I'll just make it a little bit bigger. Oop. Can you guys read that at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good.
So this was verbatim kind of what we had approved last year. Stephen has added it in as item number 3 in the 2020 contract agreement. It says slip holders must hold sole majority, 51% or more owner of the vessel or record, or the sole or majority 51% or more of the owner of the corporation that owned the vessel of record. A copy of the vessel or vessel's registration certificate of title or U.S. Coast Guard documentation, certificate of insurance, and other documentation may be required by the harbor master to accompany this form. Slip holder's name must be first on the U.S. Coast Guard documentation / state registration. So that's what we approved in the meeting. It's been added into this. Stephen wanted us to kind of show you that he's added it in.
A question, if I could.
Yeah, go right ahead.
This might be directed to Steve Gard. But it specifically mentions a corporation there, which I support. But how about a family trust? Is a family trust covered by the word corporation? Because I do know people have family trusts that own boats.
No, I would use the word entity rather than corporation. That would count for a limited liability company, professional corporation, and a regular corporation, as well as a trust that may own the boat.
Thank you, Steve.
You're
And
welcome.
hello.
Glad I could help.
Yep. Nice to see you, Steve.
Good to see you. Good to be seen.
Yeah, good to have you on, Steve. Yeah. Is that something, Stephen, you can amend?
I can make any, if it's typed out and sent to me, word for word, how you want it, I can put it in the contract.
Change the word corporation to entity.
Someone redline
Question I have is, well, the question I have is, can that be transferred from, father to daughter or son, or, brother, or sister, any of those things, because that's what they were trying to avoid with the moorings. And are we that worried about it with the slips?
Same concept. Why are they different?
That's why I'm asking this question, Howie.
I think
Yeah,
it should be the
so
same.
it's the same. It's a good question, Stephen. So it's not any different than a corporation. The shareholders, the way you've written this, and it's the way we do it too, is that you have to be a 51% shareholder. You would require, if it was owned by a trust, you would be entitled to see the schedule of beneficiaries. And that schedule of beneficiaries would have to list the slip holder as a 51% beneficiary, same as a shareholder or a member of a limited liability company, in my opinion.
So the slip holder, it would be Steve Gard, let's say.
Mhm.
And the trust would have to show you as 51%, correct?
Exactly. Just like a corporation would, you'd have to show me as a 51% shareholder or more.
Okay,
Corporation.
that's fine. This went through, I believe, Charlie Cristello put this together originally, and I think it went to town council for final review on the moorings. So it's just, I did not write that.
Can I ask a question on the second sentence on number 3? I don't know, maybe it's getting late, I just don't understand it. A copy of the vessel or records registration. What does that mean? A copy of the vessel or records registration. I'm having trouble understanding what that means.
It should be, like I said, I took this right out of the minutes and just inserted it. I cannot see that screen, but it's probably a copy of the registration or documentation of the vessel.
Well, okay.
Good catch, Howie.
I think that's it. I think that has to be rewritten because that's not right.
Okay, so what's there, Howie, was what was made a motion at the February meeting, so we can certainly change it. I think we just need to kind of capture what the changes are and then I guess re-vote on it.
Yeah, I think what he's saying is you need a copy of the vessel's registration or documentation. Although it goes on to say that, so we need to clean up that sentence.
I think it's supposed to say be a copy of the vessel of records registration certificate or title.
Oh, okay.
I think that's possibly a typo. Instead of or, I think that's supposed to be of.
You're right, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes, it should say a copy of the vessel of records registration.
Records, yeah.
You don't have to have a motion for that. It's just a typo.
It's just a typo. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And should records have an apostrophe there? Vessel of
Yeah, because it's possessive, Dave. Yeah, referring to the vessel's record, the vessel of records, meaning the vessel that's registered under the contract. Yeah.
Good question, Howie. I didn't see that at all. I didn't catch that at all.
Now, yeah, I can see where it's
yeah, vessel of record. Yeah.
Did Rick Murray fall asleep?
What's that?
Rick Murray fall asleep because he would have caught that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave.
Scroll down here,
I'm just making sure you're on your game.
Thank you, Dave.
Unless there's any other comments on that piece, I'm just going to scroll down to the other change that was made here. Line number 24. I'm not sure what the asterisk is for. Stephen, you got it started with an asterisk, but it says.
I think the asterisk was just to identify that those were the two changes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Slip holder must notify the harbor master of launch and haul date. That was something that was voted on in the February meeting. And line.
And I think I also put the asterisk there to draw people's attention to it.
Okay.
You know, as they were reviewing it.
Okay. And then line number 25, the owner is required to notify the harbor master's office when his or her slip will be vacant overnight or for an extended period of time, 24 hours or greater. The harbor master maintains the right to use vacant town slips for transient or emergency needs. Any comments or corrections or changes on that? Mr. Guard, I see you.
I guess I wonder about the term launch and haul date. Maybe it's just me, but I would think that it's maybe the slip holder must notify the harbor master of the occupancy and, removal date or whatever. Launching, I guess, I know what it means. I'm not sure that launching and hauling your boat is the same as putting it in the slip and taking it out of the slip.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah.
But it gets.
Steve, I did not write this.
I wasn't suggesting you did. We have a common phrase. I have no pride in authorship. That also means that there's no pride in criticism either. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I sent this back was just to make sure this is how you want it written.
What do you guys think? Should we take a quick crack here at changing 24 to say something a little bit different? And if we do, does that mean, Rick, that we have to go back and re-vote on it?
If I don't know, I'll defer to others who know more, like Maura and all that, but I can't imagine if we're just changing words for clarification as opposed to intent that it would require any revote.
Agreed.
Yeah.
How about arrival at the marina at the beginning of the season and departure from the marina at the end of the season, something like that.
Yeah. Slip holders must notify the harbor master of the annual arrival and departure dates.
I think that makes more sense.
That sounds okay.
Yeah, that gets. All right, Steve, I will make a couple changes and then send you a note on the changes that we just talked about.
All right, then we need to just send it to town hall for the selectmen's approval. It is a contract.
I have a question, and forgive me if I haven't looked at the contract in a while, but if this came up in one of my marinas that I represent, is there a prohibition in here about, or maybe you don't want one, about Airbnb-ing the boats in the slip? Does anybody have? I'll read the contract and look, but while we're looking.
No, I have not seen anything like that. This contract is pretty much the same. I believe it is the same contract that was here when I took over, and this is the first time we've made any changes to it.
Okay. Well, I'm just throwing it out there. We ran into this problem. I represent a bunch of marinas, and we ran into this problem, and we had to dive deep into the fine print of the contract to figure out a way to prevent the slip holder from renting the boat out to strangers every weekend. You may want to add a number that that's not allowed. But I haven't read I'll go back and read it for us so we can take a look and see if there's some language in there we could hang our hat on to prevent them from Airbnb in the slip, the boat.
Put something in Airbnb of your vessel is not permitted at the municipal marinas.
Yeah, just the short-term rental of the vessel in the slip is prohibited, and then maybe use an example such as Airbnb or, rental.com, whatever the hell it is. It's just, it's a problem. In some
VRBO, I need a vacation, any of those sites.
Yeah.
So just a question. Clearly, that's something we want to avoid. But if you already have this verbiage in here saying that the title and the registration and everything must be submitted, doesn't that already cover you that you can't put another boat in that spot?
No,
you're not putting another boat in. You're renting the boat.
Yeah.
You're renting. It would be like Howie listing his boat on vacation rentals by owner.
Oh, okay.
And
sorry.
A family coming down and renting Howie's boat to stay overnight for the week.
Sorry, I thought you were renting the slip, not the boat. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Boat and the slip for that matter. Yeah.
Can Steve Gard take a look at this and suggest some language?
Yeah, happy tomorrow. Yep.
That'd be great, Steve.
Yeah. I'll first look and see if there's something in there we can say, all right, this is prohibited. But if not, I think we need to tighten it up. That's a problem because you have strangers roaming around the place, and it's not right, you know.
So are we suggesting any boat in Scituate waters?
Well, no,
I don't know. I don't know if we can dictate of the marinas. You know, if a
No,
private marina owner
He
wants to
means the
do it.
mooring.
No, my point is the moorings.
Yeah, you know,
The moorings can't. Well, the moorings can't be rented today, anyways. Are you talking about somebody renting someone's boat?
Yeah, no,
You know,
yes,
you can charter.
exactly.
I think you can charter a boat now, can't you? I think Steve was trying to avoid people living aboard, you know, on a vacation.
The problem I have is.
I don't know. Are we trying to eliminate charters as well?
No, my point is, we're trying to bring the moorings and the slips contracts into sync so they're consistent. So here we go again, where we're saying, well, slips are one thing and moorings are something else.
well, I hear you, Howie, and I like consistency too, but they are two different things, and the town has a different level of control over slips than it would over a mooring.
Why is that, Steve?
Well,
You have a boat on a mooring and you simply say to people, you can go out and stay over, take the weekend on my boat at the mooring as a VBRO.
Well, because I think the town provides, you know, with the slip, we're providing the dock and all of the infrastructure related to the slip, including, you know, the buildings, the access, where the moorings, we issue permits. All of it is owned by the boat owner. The location is determined by the harbor master. So in my opinion, we have a lot more control over the slip and its use and who gets to use it than we do the mooring. So I don't think you can stop someone from chartering their boat on a mooring. I'm not sure you can stop someone from chartering them, but I think you could feasibly stop them from doing that on an overnight, a weekend basis at the dock on a slip. I don't think you could do it at the mooring. I don't think you could logically.
And the risk is a lot higher in the slip than on a mooring, Howie. That's another reason it's different. You know, somebody like Steve,
I don't think it's different at all. I don't think it's different at all. I think it's a question of somebody can rent my boat out on my slip for the weekend, or somebody can rent my boat out on a mooring for the weekend. I don't see the difference.
How about this? I would like to suggest that we take advantage of Steve's generosity when he said yes to Maura's request, that Steve take a look at adding a line to the slip. And then Howie, you and I, or you and somebody else, we could take a look at where we would need to add something to the mooring regs, and we come back with a proposal or not about that. But that we not let the perfect be the enemy of the good enough, and we make progress on this contract, which is the matter before us at this point in time.
I'm fine with that.
I'm happy to do that, but I think you know, to Howie's point, my comment was an observation for the you know, the commission to consider. I let the cat out of the bag on how I feel about it, but only because I've dealt with this in a commercial setting and we have a different theory on it. But you know, you folks should vet this if you want to make this a prohibition. If you don't, then you don't. And that's okay with me either way. I was just pointing it out that if the commission thought that this was not a use that they would like to see, then we need to put it in the contract that it can't be done. If it's a use that they're okay with, then you don't have to do it. But I think.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I wasn't saying that this has to be done. I thought that I was offering the observation for the purposes of discussion, but I will look at the contract to see if something's already in there, and then,
Right.
you know, so that we can talk. Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. So we'll add it on to old business for next month's meeting, just to kind of touch base on it again, and then we can put a, you know, when we get through that, we can determine whether and what we need to do, and if we want to make a motion to kind of do something with regards to amending and adding that stuff in if we need to. So.
I just want to, let everybody know that, be aware that these changes are going to have to be made, probably by the next meeting, so that we can get it to the Board of Selectmen and then we can get it to the printer.
Oh, so these are actually ones that you print up, Stephen?
Yeah, these go out in the bills.
They go out with the bills, okay. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because you get the contract and then you sign the contract and then you return the contract to us.
Yeah. But that's usually done in April-ish, right?
We send the bills out, it's February 1st.
Okay.
And
yeah,
it's February 1st or March 1st, but they got to get returned, in a certain, they have 45 days to get them back to us signed.
Yeah.
Some people do it right away and some people take their time.
Okay. Understood.
But
So,
they do have to get to the printer. That's why, I put it on here just to make any final changes, any clarifications. And that's why I said we need to then just get it to the selectmen so we can get it printed.
all right. Well, we'll look for. Do we have time if we wait till the next meeting, Stephen, to kind of do something there?
Yeah, we probably do.
Okay.
We just need to make it, just need to make a decision on it at that point. And then I can schedule it with Lorraine to get it on the next selectmen's meeting agenda.
Well, our worst case scenario is we can make the changes that we've already discussed and approved, right? And then get those approved. And then at some other point, if we determine that it is in fact needed, right, that we need this verbiage. It might be better to do it that way. And if I can hold off sending them out, if I find out tomorrow that, the printer needs them sooner than I think, then it's already approved, and we can go forward with it. And if I find out, it can be done, in a week or two in January, then we can hold off for the next meeting until the other change is made, if the change is actually made. All right. Understood. Any other comments or questions regarding that section?
So, Mike, what you're saying is we're going to just make the corrections to the approved contract. And then I'm going to see, I'm going to hold on to it. And if I can hold on to it till the next meeting, but if I can't, I can send it to the printer, or send it to the selectman and then to the printer. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know if, totally in sync with that. I think what we were trying to say is, can we wait till the next meeting to get the feedback from Steve Gard, right? And then make a determination at that point whether we can just go ahead with what we've already approved for changes, or if we need to hold back on doing it.
That's fine. Either way, just tell me. I'm pretty easy to get along with. Just tell me what you'd like.
Yeah. So that's what I would recommend. I don't know if the board feels differently, but I think that's kind of.
I think that's good. I mean, we don't have to vote on the changes we reviewed tonight. Make those slight verbiage changes to make it clear, as Rick was saying, that doesn't need a vote by us or a vote by selectmen. Steve, Steve Moan, you have that in hand. Hopefully next meeting, if we come up with any changes, worst comes to worst, you send out, if you have to send it out, you send it out as is, right? And
yeah, with the changes we already approved, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We run out of time, we'll just do it next year. Have you ever heard of anybody renting out their boat, Steve?
Nope. not in Scituate. I believe, I'm not sure. Someone once told me that Trisha had rented a boat at the Marina Bay for a year. But I don't know if that was factual or, it's just someone making up stories.
And you wouldn't know either. I mean, you don't see it.
No. But I have seen them on VRBO where you can rent a boat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's something that we really should look at. I think it's at least look at it and discuss it as a group and think if we need to add it in or if it's something that the group says we don't, right?
I think you're going to find it's a lengthy discussion.
Really?
Yeah.
It's a very interesting topic, now that you kind of giving it a little bit more thought. Do you look at it for the next fiscal year, move forward where you are now and then look forward to the bigger changes as you work through it in the next year? That would be my only other thought.
I mean, there is two things to think about. There's you got people coming and going off of a boat, but you also have those people vacationing in Scituate, spending money in the restaurants and buying T-shirts and ice creams and just spending money around town that are on vacation. That may or may not normally
do we
be
really
here.
have the authority to tell somebody they can't rent their boat?
Yeah, I don't,
That's what strikes
I don't
me
know.
about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic.
I think we
Well,
should probably
that's-
limit the amount of time they rent it out, But yeah, can we limit completely? Probably not.
Yeah.
If I owned the boat, I could, potentially rent it out all summer if I wanted to.
Well, with Airbnb, don't they limit the number of days you can rent an apartment?
No, I don't think so. I
No?
used to, I used to rent my Cape House out for the summers, and I'd rent it for a month, a week, 2 weeks, the whole summer. Just depended on, who wanted to pay.
Oh, are we trying to shoot an ant with a cannon?
No, I think it was just Steve Gard bringing up the concept that he had run into it in other marinas, and I think, Steve, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but you just wanted to bring it up for discussion.
Yeah, it's just for discussion. There's a few different concepts. I don't think the purpose of that is to prevent someone from chartering their boat for a length of time. And most people that charter a boat are going to take it from the slip and charter it, use it, go places. I think that the concept behind this is that you have a business entity now that is renting the slip for the business purpose. It's no longer a recreational vessel for the purposes to serve the purposes of its owner and its owner's friends and guests. You have strangers that are now renting out the boat that are coming down that may or may not know the rules, the regulations for being present in the marina. So I think it creates a lot of issues for us if this particular thing would be allowed. That having been said, I don't think you can do this with the mooring for different reasons, but nonetheless, the slip itself, I think you're allowing a business to be conducted in a recreational slip. And that's what this ends up being. And, you've got people that have rented the slip next door, and now there's a revolving door on the boat next to me. And that those people are coming and going and coming and going. They're throwing parties and they're violating rules, and you don't have any control over them anymore. You only have control over the person that owns the slip. If I rented a house in Scituate on the beach, the landlord would never let me Airbnb it on a daily, a weekend, or weekly basis. We're the landlords. This is our slip. It's ours to rent to them, and we get to tell them what they can and cannot do. So that's how I feel about it. But again, I only brought it up for the purposes of discussion. I didn't suggest that this was an issue that was happening now, but I'm relating my professional experience that I was shocked when I found out. I was like, what? When the client came to me and said, this guy is Airbnb in his boat. Can we stop him? And I went, he's doing what? I had no idea. It was a concept that just never even occurred to me. So I thought that I'd throw it out there just because we were looking at the contract for the slips. But that's my 2 cents.
I think it's great to bring it up and figure out if it's something we need to look at and change to protect ourselves. So I think it's great. We'll keep it on the agenda for the next meeting, but as far as this goes, if we can't get through it in the next meeting, we can just go ahead with the changes that Stephen has already had approved and do that, and then look at it down the road. So, yeah.
Of course. Again, and Maura's right. This is a concept that may take a little bit more time to vet.
Yeah.
Stephen's right too. These people come and they bring in money.
Right.
But there's a much bigger downside for our existing customers who want to enjoy their boat when there are strangers occupying the boat next door. It's not just, when a transient comes in their $80,000 boat and ties up next to us, they're respectful. They know what a marina's like. You get somebody that lives in, Western Massachusetts that, oh, let's do this Airbnb. They don't get the subtleties and the courtesies that fellow mariners share on the water. In my opinion, it is fraught with peril to allow this to take place for us liability wise. We don't have insurance on these people. We haven't identified who they are. And it's going to end up being a disturbance for those other, paying customers that we have an obligation to. So anyway, I'll leave it with that.
Yeah. Like Maura said earlier, it could be a pretty lengthy discussion. I think everyone's probably get some different perspectives, but it's all pretty interesting, and I don't think I ever contemplated it. So good.
Anything that involves me was often a lengthy discussion. I bet Maura will tell you that.
Steve, I just wanted you to know I don't have an opinion either way on this right now.
Yeah.
So I was just saying that, it has benefits and it's got upsides and downsides.
It does. You made a really good point. I didn't think of that. You made a good point. They bring commerce to town. I get it. I'm not sure if this is how I want to bring commerce.
But that it may not be the best way to get commerce to town though.
Yeah.
So it's just something that we have to think about.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the spirited discussion.
Yeah. Very good. Anyone else have any comments? Because that was the last item on the agenda for new business. Any questions from the committee or from the audience? Nobody? Like to make an motion to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
And I'd like to wish all you guys you get a second? And I'd like to wish all you guys great holidays and have a great new year, because we won't see you guys till beginning of the year.
Ooh.
You too,
Wow.
Have a nice
Thank you.
safe time, folks. Everybody be
Thank
safe.
you all. Be safe and
Yeah.
well.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Maura.
We'll see you later. Thank you.